Hi there. Today we're going to review the sequel to a previous book we reviewed, and it's this book, which is More of the Deadliest Men Who Ever Lived by Paul Kirchner, which is obviously the sequel to his The Deadliest Men Who Ever Lived. And like the previous book, there are also women who are very deadly included in the book. So he's really gone right through history to get this collection, going back to samurai times and to the Middle Ages in some cases. But the first one I want to talk about is Mad Jack Churchill, who was a commando officer in World War II. And it said he's included because it wouldn't be right to leave out a man who stormed the D-Day beaches while playing the bagpipes, who took 42 Germans prisoner at sword point, and who may remain the last soldier in a European army to kill an enemy with a longbow. So, absolutely fascinating character, one of those types of real warriors who appear sometimes once a generation, but a world war obviously throws up quite a few of them. Then we come to quite a few of the people who have been included are very well known, and one is Jeff Cooper. His adventures, his gunfights, his expedition, his training adventures down in South America are all included in the chapter. But because I've already reviewed the biography of Jeff Cooper, The Soul and the Spirit, I won't speak any more on that one. And also Herman Henneken, who was a US Marines officer. His story was told in one of Jeff Cooper's books, and so I won't go over it too much in this, but they're well worth including. One very interesting chapter is Kitty Hesselbeer and Rain Simpson. Now, this happened during the Mau Mau terrorists activities in Kenya, and it was the Mau Mau were going around murdering white settlers who farmers and business people who lived there, and their preferred weapon was the panga, which is a large machete, and this was often done with the collusion of the servants. So the servants might call the man of the house out to tend to a sick animal or something like this, and he'd be ambushed by the Mau Mau, and then they'd go inside and kill everyone else. And this slaughter went on, and it was a terrible problem. Anyway, these two ladies were well aware of the problem, and they armed themselves with pistols. And sure enough, there came a commotion, and they heard the servants allowing a gang into the house, and four of them burst in, and immediately one started to strangle one of the ladies. Well, the other lady, Kitty, she managed to grab a pistol and went to work and dropped them, and they survived. So terrific little story in that, and it reminded me of a case that happened while I was in South Africa. It was on the news there, and a young girl, I think she was about 11 or 12 years of age, and she had been alone in the house with her little brother, and a couple of burglars broke in, and she got to a firearm and solved the problem, killed the two of them. And she was interviewed on TV, and she was very calm about it, and her total concern was what would have happened to her little brother. And what a girl. Then another chapter of interest is Paddy or Blair Main, who may be fairly well known to many here because he was a commando during World War II who went, he was involved in numerous commando operations, and then he was recruited into the SAS by David Sterling, and became a force of nature in the SAS. And he specialized in airfield attacks. They would take a column of vehicles and burst into the airfields, the German Luftwaffe airfields, and race down the line of aircraft. And these jeeps they were using were bristling with Vickers machine guns, and they put down a heavy, awesome weight of fire. And Paddy Main is actually credited with destroying more enemy aircraft than any RAF pilot. He got lots and lots of medals, but he's probably the most under-decorated officer in the British Army, because even though he did get a lot of recognition, he didn't get as much as he should have done. He's probably the guy who killed more people with a Fairbairn knife than anyone else. In one operation, they reckon he killed 17 Germans, because they started putting sentries on the aircraft, and Blair went round and killed the sentries before the op started. Later on in the war, the SAS was deployed behind the lines in France prior to D-Day, and they were doing similar operations with the jeeps, going through German positions and brassing them up. And he was told that he couldn't take part, he had to stay at headquarters, but he wangled his way in and naturally started fighting again. He was an awesome character. He stood 6'2", and he was a heavyweight boxing champion of the Irish universities, and played on the British rugby team. So he was a terrific sportsman as well, and but a real warrior. And unfortunately, after the war, he was killed in a vehicle accident back in his native Northern Ireland. So his contribution to Special Forces left a mark even in the post-war regiment, and his name was used for one of the blocks of the Rhodesian SAS camp in his honour. A building there was named after him. Now, the two books together, a terrific testament to the Deadliest Men, but there's a glaring omission, and that's Jim Cirillo. If you're putting any list of terrific fighting men, particularly gunfighters, together, Cirillo's got to be on there. And the reason he's not in the books is Paul Kirchner decided he needed a book to himself, and we have already reviewed the book about Jim Cirillo, or the couple of books on him about the stakeout unit. So, good sequel. Every chapter is exciting from the point of view of lessons to be learned. You can see how people went about preparing for fighting, the mindset and so on. So there's an awful lot to be gleaned from these two books, and I highly recommend them.